Welcome everyone. I am Ricky Rivera, Chief Product Officer and co-game designer of Indominant Superhero Tabletop Role-Playing Game, and today we will be talking about how combat works in our game. So without further ado, let's set the scene. Heatsink is a blaster archetype, someone who deals high amount of damage, but is a bit vulnerable to harm if caught close up. And he has fire manipulation powers, which specializes in area effect damage and applying the burning status effect on enemies, dealing damage over time. Joining him is Xiao Hu, a guardian archetype, someone who likes to protect his allies and get between them and threats. And he has the martial arts power set, which uses a combination of martial techniques and projectiles made of their body's innate energy to deal impactful damage on the battlefield. A great combo of supers to work together. Heatsink and Xiao Hu are training with Major Discord, head of the Galactic Legion United (GLU) training facility, for supers who want to use their powers to help protect the universe. Today, Major Discord has a simple, straightforward training program all set up. Use all your skills to defeat the training robots. Sounds pretty simple, right? To start combat, all combatants must roll an initiative roll, which is a d20 dice roll plus their agility stat. 3 robots all roll, an 8, a 12, and a 14 each. While luckily, Heatsink rolled high with a 15 plus 2 agility for a total of 17, and Xiao Hu rolled a 13 plus 0 agility, so for a total of 13. Time for Heatsink to step up and get into action. Every turn, you have 4 action points you can use, with several different types of actions. Main actions cost 2 action points and are usually for using stronger, more effective powers, and minor actions cost just 1 action point and are mostly strategical powers that cause negative status effects on the enemy, or an empower one's own self or allies. The first movement action on a turn costs just 1 action point, and a follow-up movement actions cost 2 action points. Luckily, being a blaster archetype, Heatsink is already in range, so he has some main actions he can use right away. But Xiao Hu, as a guardian archetype, he's more melee focused, and he will need to move on his turn to be in range and effective in combat. Let's talk about drive. Every super has a drive resource to spend in and out of combat to use their powers from their power list. Their maximum drive is equal to twice the level the super currently is. In this case, Heatsink is level 1 and would have 2 max drive. However, as a blaster archetype, he starts combat with drive equal to his recovery value of 1, and after the first turn in an encounter, regains twice his recovery value of drive every turn. Perfect for someone who wants to deal a lot of damage throughout a long fight. Heatsink wants to use a main action to use his tier 1 power, Flame Flick, one of his high damage powers. To use it, he must use 1 drive, as every tiered power costs its tier number in drive to use. Let's mark 1 drive off his character sheet, then aim our Flame Flick at the nearest robot. Attacks have a familiar feel to those coming from other D20 tabletop role-playing games. Heatsink must roll a D20 and add his attack modifier to the roll. In our system, Heatsink must beat the score of the robot's defense in order to succeed on the attack. There are also reactions someone could use before this roll is finished, but let's talk about those later. For now, Heatsink rolled a 12 plus 4 attack modifier for a total of 16. That beats the robot's defense of 9. Heatsink raises his arms and uses his special flamethrowers to flick a small stream of flames right onto the robot, incinerating it. Since the attack hits, Heatsink rolls 2d6 and adds his damage modifier to see the total damage. In this case, a 3 and a 4 plus 2 damage modifier for a total of 9 damage. The robot is surrounded in fire and would normally gain the burning status effect from his attack, but Major Discord laughs and smiles as the robot that looked like a 7-foot-tall robot with guns and shoulder-mounted rockets shimmers with light, revealing that it was a hologram projected from a training orb robot, and it gets destroyed immediately. These supers still have work to do. There's a bigger and what looks like tougher robot still across the field, and another bot just to the south of them. Heatsink uses a main action which costs 2 action points to use his flame patch base power, and aim it to the right under both the targets. Base powers use no drive, so they can come in handy, especially for a blaster archetype who can use all of their drive and run out of gas quickly at the start of a fight. Heatsink sprays his flamethrower on the ground under the robots, setting them ablaze, which means that at the start of their turn, they've got some damage coming in. On that note, let's take a look at what threats have available to them when the comic editor, Indominant's Game Master, takes the reins. Threats don't use drive. Instead, they have a limited supply of powers that can run out during combat and sometimes regenerate. But first, Heatsink left the bots a nasty burning present under their feet, didn't he? Heatsink yells out, "That will be 2 damage, and he's burning now from my burning flames inherent effect." As a fire manipulator, any successful damaging firepower will apply the burning status effect to the target. The big robot takes its damage and begins to scan the battlefield, determining that the best strategy is to stun the opponent that just took out one of his allies first. Threats do use action points too, so the robot knows it must use a movement action and then a minor action for its stunning pulsar. It makes its movement to get into range, just about 6 units away. We keep distance simple. On a square grid battle map, every square is 1 unit, roughly equivalent to 5 feet or 1.5 meters. But why worry about all that when the robot is in range to shoot out its stunning pulsar? It shoots out a stunning pulsar shot towards Heatsink, causing him to make an agility check to see if he gets affected. Heatsink rolls a d20 for 4 and adds his agility of 2 for a total of 6, but he did not beat the check, and so will immediately take 1d4 plus the robot's damage modifier damage, a total of 3, and be stunned for 1 turn. Stunned is a negative status effect, and Heatsink will start his turn with his action point total reduced by 3, movement halved, and defense, attack, and stat check attempts reduced by 2. Not a good position to be in. Detecting success on its hit, the robot raises its gun and sets it to hurt. It will use its last 2 action points on a main action attack. It'll roll a d20, add its attack modifier for a total of 13 plus 1 or 14, beating Heatsink's defense. It's successful and rolls its damage for 1d6 plus 1 damage modifier for a total damage of 5. A solid hit on Heatsink, and now Heatsink is in trouble. But it's a good thing Xiaohu is up next to maybe help out. As a guardian, Xiaohu has his max drive available for all his powers to be used at the start of combat, but he still has to get in melee range to use most of them. He uses a movement action and gets right in front of the robot. Then he will use a main action to use his leg sweep power and potentially knock down the robot before it has a chance to get back up and deal more damage. The robot must succeed an agility check of 8 plus Xiaohu's control modifier of 3 for a total of 11, and with their roll, they only roll a total of 7. The robot is knocked down immediately. Knowing this may make Xiaohu a target, he uses his final action point for a heightened sense power, granting him plus 1 defense for a whole turn. Next up is the other robot on the field, but they still have to deal with the flame patch from Heatsink. That'll be another 2 damage and burning, but before anything else, the robot completely gets destroyed from the fires again. It seems this was another training orb and burnt up immediately. The tables seem to be turning in the super's favor. Heatsink starts the new round, gaining 2 drive, hitting his max amount of drive, but being stunned has reduced his action points down to just 1. He could try to move, but will not get far. He instead remembers that the robot is on fire, and he has his Feed the Flames base power that can take advantage of that. And with the knockdown status effect on the robot, Heatsink gains dominance on this attack. Dominance and weakness are stacking dice for attacks made on targets. Supers using strategic powers can apply multiple status effects and potentially gain plus a d4, a d6, and all the way up to plus 1d20, depending on how many stacks of dominance they have.
Back to Heatsink. He goes for it, rolling a ranged attack, and he gets a natural 20. He then rolls an additional 1d4 for his dominance on this attack, since the robot is knocked down, getting him a plus 1. Then adds his plus 4 attack modifier, and finally, minus 2 from being stunned. All that for a total of 23, a definite hit. Since the total is over 20, it counts as a critical hit for the damage as defined in this power.
Heatsink raises his palm and squeezes hard like extinguishing a flame, causing the robot to immediately take 8 damage. But it is no longer burning. That's all Heatsink can do for now. His stunned effect ends at the end of this turn. The robot is up now. He uses a movement action to stand up and drop the knockdown status. Understanding it's not a good spot between this Xiaohu threat, he will try to stun him and run away. He uses a minor action to use his stunning pulsar again, and Xiaohu must succeed an agility check of at least 8. But Xiaohu beats it with a roll of 12, completely dodging out of the way of the attack. The robot reprocesses and thinks it should try to use its last 2 action points to use its second movement action for the turn, which would move it out of the way by 6 units. However, as it does, Xiaohu gets a reactive strike. Reactive strikes take place when any target moves out of another target's melee range, and the non-moving target may use a base power against that moving target. In this case, Xiaohu lines up another leg sweep. The robot fails its agility check and is knocked down again, losing all of its remaining movement and keeping it right back down. Now it's Xiaohu's turn. Xiaohu not only has 1 drive left, but has dominance from the target being knocked down, and he is flanking the robot. Flanking provides an additional stack of dominance to attacking if they are positioned behind, back left, or back right of the intended target. Xiaohu focuses his energy into a minor action power, Judo Chop. He will also use his inherent effect, Kata, granting him plus 2 damage modifier, plus 1 unit of movement, and plus 2 to all stat check attempts using only 1 Kai he saved up from last turn. He rolls a d20, adds 1d6 to the roll for a total of 18 plus 4, 22 total. When rolling with dominance, however, any total above 20 counts as a critical hit. Xiaohu doubles his damage dice from 1d6 to 2d6, adds his damage modifier to it, and if any of the dice roll their max value, they become explosive, which will deal double their damage too. He rolls, and it's terrible, a 2 plus a 6. However, remember, that 6 doubles to a 12, and now he adds his plus 2 damage modifier for a total of 16 damage. Xiaohu jumps up, chops right through the robot, splitting it in half, burning it from his Kai energy. Major Discord laughs. Well, they certainly had you both on the ropes. Heatsink quickly replies, Nah, that was too easy, Major. Xiaohu's robotic voice sighs just a little before he responds, I wish you didn't say that. Major Discord laughs even harder and clicks a couple of buttons. Well, let's see if you can handle a few more then. Suddenly, Xiaohu and Heatsink are surrounded by 6 robots on all sides. Xiaohu and Heatsink look at each other, smile, and nod as they run toward them, answering the call.